Chapter 34 to 35, The Goods. After Pride departed from the inn, he fell into a trance-like state. On one side, I can understand the world government. Right now, pirates are plentiful, so they cannot keep on dispatching marine officers all the time to neutralize them. That would just further split their overall force and create room for them to be attacked. Pride set off on his way. If I'm not mistaken, this must be the right way, he thought, and just went right along the mountains. Thahhh, hi-hi, mhhhh, mhhhh. In one of the remote mountains, there was a cave. At least that's what it seemed to be. Laughter echoed throughout the area. More than 15 pirates were sitting there around a fire. They were laughing and enjoying the atmosphere. Around them, their tied-up merchandise, weeping and grieving. Over and over again, they asked themselves the same question. Why them of all people? Why suffer the fate that everyone feared? Shut up! One of the pirates shouted and threw a stone at one of the victims. Out of fear, they stopped uttering a sound. There you go. Thhhh. Pride, wandering in the direction of the mountains, at some point sensed that several people were assembled in a cluster. As he could certainly assert that these were the pirates and the inhabitants of the island, he didn't hesitate and went to their location. Slowly, darkness fell. From one of the bushes, well hidden away, he could see the pirates and their captives. As he was wearing a black coat and the sky was dark, he seemed to be invisible. The pirates' laughter intensified and reached its highest point. People were tied up and weeping in front of them, and yet it didn't stop them from having a wonderful time with each other. Drake, how much longer until the captain arrives? I don't feel like staying on this island anymore. Sigh. The captain should show up by tomorrow morning at the latest, intoned Drake, one of the pirates. Pride, hearing everything aloud and clearly from a distance, pondered. Sigh. I could step in right now and remove all these pirates. But what difference would that make? By the time I have left the island for good, and the captain finds his crew dead, he will seek revenge on the townspeople. The liberated will be once again captured, and probably await an even worse fate. All right, I will stay concealed and wait until the entire crew is in one place, so I can eliminate them altogether. Maybe I couldn't help the people of Centauria, but I can lighten the burden of these people and prevent them from suffering such a fate. Many hours passed while Pride kept watch in hiding. He could confirm that, after a particular stage, when you're powerful enough, it's indeed possible to stay awake for days without feeling even the slightest fatigue. Akainu was able to fight Kazan for weeks without a break. So what is doing nothing and waiting? The morning dawned. The fluorescent sun was slowly making its presence felt. Its majestic appearance became clearer by the second. Its temperature continued to rise, bestowing the cactus island with all its radiance. Wake up, fellas. One of the pirates called out. They drank a lot the night before. So many were not yet in their right mind. Drake, let us rest for a little longer. It was a tedious night. Do you want the captain to beat the crap out of us when he gets back and you're still napping? Sigh. Come on, get on your feet. Prepare breakfast and feed the hostages. It won't be long before he's back. Yon, you win. A few addressed and stood up one after another. It took them a while to catch and grill a wild animal. Pride was quite lucky because the pirates were rather careless and didn't pay proper attention to their surroundings. Go on, eat, spoke a pirate to one of the young women after removing the ribbon from her mouth. Phew, I'd rather die than eat out of your hand. Thhhh. Dale, she totally hit you in the face.
Thud, thud.
Rh, you little ungrateful bitch. Eat this. He screamed and kicked her violently in the stomach several times.
Boom, boom.
Blood and tears flowed out of her. And yet she never uttered a single thing. She just wanted the pain to go away. She would rather die in agony than spend the rest of her life in slavery. Pride was seething with rage within the bushes. One thing he hated more than anything else was violence against feeble women and children. He didn't know. Was it because One Piece was originally a fictional world with a particular story setting? Or was it simply that most of the world's population just enjoyed enslaving, torturing, and killing people? On the other hand, perhaps he set the standard for humanity a little too high. Screw it. Even if the captain does not show up soon, I can still wait for him. Scum. They don't deserve to live. I'm not a self-proclaimed knight, going from town to town to help the desperate. But when something so disgusting is happening in front of me, and I have the opportunity to change it, I do. Even though I yearn for freedom and to be a pirate, I have not abandoned my humanity. Kar. The rustling of the bushes became one with the footsteps of a person. Everyone's eyes turned to someone unknown, who had suddenly emerged from the forest's interior. Hey, who are you? As they have been roaming the seas for quite some time now, they know that death can always lurk around the corner, so they already grabbed their weapons. Pride approached them step by step. The hostages glanced up at him. Hope sparkled in their desperate eyes. Tahaiha. Another townsman trying to get in our way. Not to mention alone, don't make me laugh. Tears were already flowing from amusement. Who gave you permission to speak? and his eyes momentarily brimmed with a reddish hue. Something snapped. None of those present felt anything, except for the person who spoke last. Pride directed his conqueror's hockey only at him. It was difficult for him to breathe, as if an invisible person was strangling him without resistance. It felt odd. The pain was excruciating, as if someone was directly assaulting his soul and tearing something out of it. Something that made him incomplete. Tears were pouring out of his eyes, and they were not tears of laughter. He just longed to lose consciousness, but it was as if someone was preventing him from doing so by any means possible. Dale, are you all right? The pirates who had noticed something were all panic-stricken for their fellow member. P-Pain, J just K-kill me please. They were furious, but they turned their attention back to the stranger as he slowly approached them. It was you, wasn't it? What did you do to Dale? As no reply came, he repeated his words. Come on, answer me. Arg. One of the pirates couldn't stand it any longer. He reached for his sword and charged at Pride. As he got closer and closer to him, he lifted his sword upwards. With a downward slash, he hoped to eliminate the unfamiliar man. Swash. Yet Pride was already no longer in his old position. The sword missed hitting him. The pirate couldn't understand how, but before he could ponder over it, a fist struck him in the stomach.
Boom.
The pirate was propelled away at incredible speed. Tree after tree was swept along with him. Those present were shocked. Such power. They usually only saw something like that from their captain. Pride was not more than a few meters away from the pirates, but none of them moved out of fear. Pride reminded them of their captain. What is the use of waving a sword in the face of a monstrous power like that? Those present were among the weakest of the crew. That is why they were given the task of looking after the hostages in their absence. Before Pride, their fear prevailed. An inner voice whispered to them that it was useless to resist. They should leave their fate to him and die in agony. A purple sphere burst forth from the stranger. What had previously encompassed only 5 meters now stretched over a radius of 10 meters. The scattered pirates were pinned to the ground. It was as if tons were raining down on them. A feeling of powerlessness spread. Without any resistance, their faces were slammed into the soil. The pressure even caused cracks to appear. They could no longer move. At that moment, they could understand how the hostages felt. To be helpless, at the mercy of another individual. Please, let us leave. We have a family waiting for us too. One of them spoke with difficulty. Raha, truly ironic. You separate and destroy families. Now you ask me to let you go, so you can be reunited with your families. Sigh. You can see them again. That is if they also die in the coming time. While the pirates were lying motionless within his radius, Pride flicked his finger, and the hostages around him began to levitate. They panicked and emitted noises. They didn't know what was going on. With some of the people now in front of Pride, he removed the rope shackles from the arms and legs of one of them, grabbed the knife that's on the floor, and released the rest. She nodded and did what the stranger had asked her to do. A few minutes later, all the hostages were released. They were crying. This time they were overwhelmed with happiness. Happiness not to be enslaved, and to have the chance to reunite with their families.
Sob.
Thank you for freeing us, some said, crying. They knew he meant them no harm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have freed them and attacked the pirates. Stop crying. Do you think that because you were saved today, you will always be safe? Sigh. You there, come here, said Pride, pointing to the woman who had been helplessly attacked earlier. She didn't have to be asked twice, and soon she was standing before Pride and the assailant, kissing the ground. Do you always want to be helpless and dependent on others? They looked down at the ground, frozen and mournful. If you want to take your destiny into your own hands, you have to get stronger. And the first step is to be cold as ice. There must be no hesitation, no wavering. Every second can decide whether you live or die. Most of the children couldn't follow Pride's words as they were still too young. But the women understood what he was trying to say. Pride looked at the woman beside him. The sword you are holding in your hand. Kill him with it. The woman froze. Thoughts flashed through her mind. She had to harden herself. She had to become ice cold. What if her hesitation was the cause of something bad happening to someone she cared about? Thousands of thoughts went through her mind. But in reality, only a few seconds had passed. It was a display of pure determination. Amateurishly, she raised the sword and closed her eyes as she plunged it into the back of the motionless man. As she stabbed a second and third time, her eyes remained open. She was completely soaked in blood. D.
Stab.
Once the whole floor was covered with blood, she stopped. The person who had been most brutally mutilated was no longer identifiable. She really did it. Some of the women muttered as they covered the eyes of some of the children. Now it's your turn, Pride said to the other women. Some showed courage and determination. They came to Pride. Others couldn't bring themselves to do it and remained petrified. Pride didn't force them. The other women grabbed at the weapons on the floor and glared at the pirates in fury. The pirates pleaded, but Pride ignored them. "You know what you have to do," said Pride. As soon as the women stood in front of them with their swords raised, the remaining pirates too gave up on their lives and waited for the sword stroke to fall. The slaughter began. The pirates were slit open in agony, one by one, until they were lifeless on the ground. After the bloodied women had done their deeds, it was time for Pride to speak. "You are now one step further. You have managed to develop your individuality. Sometimes it's not just a matter of being physically strong. What really counts is decisiveness. What good is it when a situation arises where you could launch a surprise attack, but you don't have the courage to do it or hesitate? Such opportunities don't always appear. Take the children and go back to your families. This is where your journey ends." The women who had learned from him expressed their heartfelt thanks to him before leaving. "Will we see each other again? If fate allows it." A couple of hours passed by. There was no sign of the women or children. It had been a long time since they had returned to their families. "At least I could help them. These are indeed turbulent times. Next week they could be captured by someone else. Well, I've provided them with as much as I can. The rest of it is no longer any of my concern." Pride sat there, surrounded by devastated corpses, waiting for the rest of the crew to arrive. Another seemingly eternal period of time passed before Pride picked up several human signs in the distance. This must be them. 20 people. They don't look so weak, though. Pride could sense a strong presence in 2 of the 20 people. The rest were of no significance to him. He was perched on a boulder, awaiting their arrival. With each passing second, the snapping of the branches and the rustling of the bushes became more pronounced for Pride. "Captain, it should be here." Arriving at their destination, they were faced with something completely unexpected. The captives? Far and wide there was no sign of them. And their crew members? Dead, so mutilated that it was impossible to tell them apart. All they could see was a young man waving at them, smiling.